Hi, this is Stephen Beschloss with America, America,
And I'm Mark Jacob with the Stop the Presses newsletter.
and this is On Target. This week, we're going to focus on, and actually for the second time, to focus on fact checking. And it's specifically fact checking that related to the California wildfires and the misinformation, the disinformation spread particularly by Donald Trump, which of course gets to an awful lot of people, political in its nature to both attack politicians, but also to raise questions about water policy and what it is that the state and the city is or is not doing. And the piece that we're focusing in on that really deserves our praise is actually it was published by PBS, but it was originated by the Poynter Institute's PolitiFact. And I want to actually, before sort of digging into it, I want to just note about PolitiFact and what it's doing, because I think it provides an important service in this particular case, but I think as an ongoing thing in times like these. So, PolitiFact, which is owned by the nonprofit Poynter Institute for Media Studies, it's been doing this since 2007, and it talks about its core principles, which are independence and transparency and fairness through reporting and thorough reporting and clear writing. The reason we publish is to give citizens the information they need to govern themselves in a democracy. And that struck me as a pretty good summary of why we want to emphasize this. The details of the fact check, which are important, and maybe Mark, you'll share about that. But the details of that fact check are for the purpose, so that the truth is out there and that people can find the truth. And that's going to be very important in the coming months and the coming years. It may not change minds among the MAGA crowd, but it just might arm the people who actually care about the truth with the information that they need to be able to remain locked into something that approximates reality.
Yeah, the lying about the California fires is a good example of Trump's style of lying, because he's actually quite talented at just making up
It
specifics
is.
that aren't true. Like in this case, he's talking about, well, Gavin Newsom wanted to protect a smelt, a worthless fish, and that's why people didn't get water to save their homes. And he even mentioned Newsom had a water restoration declaration that
Right.
that prevented water from getting where it's supposed to get. And there was no restoration declaration. It was just a 100% lie. He
Yeah.
just made it up. And Stephen, he's just so good at pretending that there's real stuff when he's just all he's doing is just throwing up smoke. And in this case, the real problem was that they didn't have the infrastructure to fight gigantic fires like this. That
And almost no community does when
right.
there's something at this scale, that the infrastructure could not have the water that it needed to be able to distribute.
And it wasn't even that they didn't have the water. It's just they couldn't get the water delivered to where it
Right.
needed to be because of the infrastructure problem. And it's a long-term problem. And obviously, you can talk about climate change. You can talk about overbuilding in areas of California. There's plenty to
Indeed.
talk about for rational people to talk about, but instead, Donald Trump wants to make up lies in order to suggest to people that government can't do anything and that blue states are terrible and we don't care about them. I mean, it's just garbage. And so, you and I both talked about the limits of fact checking, and if fact checking something 3 hours after somebody says it, how much good does it do? But it's really necessary. I mean,
Yeah.
we still need to do this because when your cousin tells you, oh, well, Donald Trump said that it was Gavin Newsom's fault. You might want to you probably Google and try to find actual facts to present
Right.
to your cousin so that you can fight back.
Yeah.
And that's why these services like PolitiFact are important.
Yeah, and look, I think They do a thorough job of reporting. They talk to a lot of experts. They get the point that, the water that's available in Northern California isn't just distributed to Southern California, which sounds like a reasonable thing, which turns out to be nonsense. It's not what Southern California relies on. And it also talks to people who says, we have the water stored. We just weren't able to access it given the scale of what we were dealing with. And so, they go to experts, they get the detail, they provide us information that really helps, anybody who cares to know what the truth is, or something that approximates the truth that they can get it. Now, I want to suggest that, it's a well reported piece and the information is there. It's still not easy. You have to work at it to
Right.
sort of pull out what the connections are. And I think, this is one of those things in the coming years. There's going to be a need, I think, a responsibility for journalists and other organizations to find a way to be able to share information that gives the facts in as clear and easy a way as possible, so that it doesn't have to be, a couple of, journalism nerds like us who are digging into it, but it's available and pretty easy to digest and to share, for a wide audience. I think that's going
Yeah.
to be important in these years.
I mean, it's really clear that it's easier to lie than to debunk a lie. I mean, a lot easier. And so we've just got to support fact checking, and we've got to make it easier. And yes, we have to make it more understandable to regular people, to where everything's not like some sort of position paper. It's got to and so communication is really key in knocking down these lies. And also, Stephen, I suggest that considering Trump's history of lying, when somebody sees him lie on TV, they ought to assume he's lying.
Yeah.
They ought to assume that it's up to him and his supporters to prove what he's saying is true. Because I mean, frankly, you're better off just assuming that he's lying to you, because most of the time he is.
Right, and look, we focus on the journalistic work that helps us to make sense of what's happening. But I also want to say, I think there's an opportunity for, for everybody who's listening, for everyday citizens, to do a little bit of that kind of research themselves and to share it with their friends, share it with others. When something doesn't sound right, when something sounds like a lie, which is to say his lips are moving, it's probably a time to double check what that was and see if you might find a fact or two to be able to share. Even if it's not the whole story about water policy and fire prevention and failed sustainability practices and the policies of Gavin Newsom and the mayor of Los Angeles, all of that sort of detail. Even if it's just one of those things, the incremental step by step sharing of the facts that you can find is something that I think we all citizens need to do in this period. That's part of how we oppose what is going to be a floodgate, a fire hose of lies.
Yeah, amen. That says it very well.
So,
See you next time.
see you next time, Mark.